learning a specific way of speaking in public, you learn your way of speaking in
Mm,
public, which is which yours is very different to mine,
mm,
even though there are some fantastic speakers that take place in many clubs constantly, they're still going there.
mm.
There's a reason for that, I assume. I was welcomed from the first day as guest.
I like this term, mental hobby.
People are taking care of each other, they are interested in each other. We have the dinners every once in a while. There's also some other connected activities. There is not only the meetings.
Mm.
That makes it more personal.
Thank you for being our guest. You are one of the newest members in our club,
Mhm.
but I saw how much energy you have and how much, you know, motivation you have.
I
Yeah,
wanted to try out all those roles that I haven't still as well. The other
yeah.
day was I took the Toastmasters role for the first time and must say I was exhausted at the end. The Toastmasters of the day
Mm,
role, and you don't realize when you're seeing it in as an external viewer, you don't realize how much energy it needs to be managing a lot the technical part of the meeting, knowing the roles, explaining it to the people that are not so used to the format, introducing people, making sure everything is going timely.
mm.
Took a while mentally, but it was a nice experience. I must say
Yeah.
I'd be happy to repeat it again. And
Uh,
in the point regarding involvement and so on. I'm not new to those masters. I was there years ago. That was also part of why I know the systematics. I know how the meetings are structured, and I participated already. But
mm,
what I do like now, in contrast to my previous experience, is that my previous experience was mostly during the Corona pandemic. It was a bit difficult to participate or to do everything online, definitely. I think that was like 80% of my time there was online. So actually being able to come to the location, to meet the people, those little chats that you may have in the meantime are those that bring even an extra value. So Masters
mm,
is not only about the organized meeting, it's all that is around it. So therefore, I'm very happy to have joined, and that's why now that I'm relatively new to Munich, but have been some bit of time already,
mm,
to finding also a group of people with similar interests, but at the same time, people that are different to me. And that I think is very important, and that motivates me to go as much as I can, definitely.
yeah. I was in Frankfurt. I started in Frankfurt, was Toastmasters also,
Yeah.
and I came to continued here in Munich. Ranjit, he had experience also in other areas of public speaking before he came here.
Mhm.
Golf was in Stuttgart before he came, and now you were in Stuttgart and then you came. So there's this common thing about Toastmasters that whenever you join any club or when you start with such international kind of um, meetings, and especially regarding public speaking, then it makes it easier to keep up and to know the structure more or less whenever you go after this.
And to apply the lessons learned, and to
Yeah.
apply and to see what other clubs are doing well or maybe not so well, and then translate that to what you're doing now. I
Mm,
think for me that was a big difference that I can see now. Something how some specific setting of the meetings are different, or the motivation level of the speakers, or how much are they involved. You do see
mm,
differences, and you do see how clubs target it differently. Also, I also went as a guest to 2 or 3 other clubs in Munich, correct? And you could see the energy levels and the background of some of them can be quite different. So it's good to go and see it, and then you can use those lessons learned to either improve your club or understand what makes it special. I think that's also a good point. You cannot
mm,
expect the experience to be the same everywhere, but you can make sure that you understand what is making your club good or great,
mm.
and have it clear, and focus on also on keeping that differentiation for the future.
mm. Pablo, let's say now one of your friends is looking and then he saw, oh, Pablo is on YouTube and he's talking about Toastmasters or Prostmasters. What would you tell them? Like, what is Toastmasters?
Let me gather thoughts because that's what because I have a feeling that the initial idea I had in Toastmasters was very different to the one I have now.
Mm,
In my first experience, I really thought of Toastmasters as a way to improve public speaking. Full stop.
mm,
And I went there and I focused on learning and seeing the techniques of other people, how they were doing the speeches. At that time, I had not much knowledge. I saw that there was this interesting feedback giving concept. So in the beginning, for me, Toastmasters was a rather standardized group of people that met regularly, in most cases every 2 weeks, in which people would present their own speeches, their homemade speeches, and then they would receive from other members subjective evaluation.
mm,
Very, let's say, very structured in this sense.
mm,
But as time goes by, I think the public speaking feature remains there, but you start developing yourself. And what I think is important to understand from Toastmasters is you're learning a specific way of speaking in public. You learn your way of speaking in
mm,
public, which yours is very different to mine, and it's very different to all the colleagues, for example, of our club. Everybody has their own style.
mm,
We communicate differently, and it's good to accept that.
mm,
It's good to understand if there are points in which I can communicate clearer, or there's some gestures that maybe are a bit overdone, but it's still your way of communicating.
mm,
And for me, that is actually the most important, is not learning a specific way, it's learning to be comfortable with your way. For me, that's Toastmasters, and I would include a second aspect here, the fact that you meet a lot of people from different backgrounds means that
mm,
you actually do learn something different apart from public speaking. You learn while you're hearing, when you're listening to the speeches.
mm,
They can involve so many topics and so many different themes and so many different emotions. People that view things very different because of their personal backgrounds.
mm,
That you don't hear while you're having your normal life or your job. That's you don't have that level of di really diversity there.
mm,
So for me, that's why I would say Toastmasters. You come up with the idea that I want to improve public speaking, but you can build much more. It depends on what are your long-term goals and how comfortable are you with those goals, and understanding that in the end of there's not an end path to Toastmasters.
mm,
It's an experience of its own.
mm,
It doesn't mean that at some point I will be good enough in public speaking that I'm fine and I will leave. If the process is done right, you're enjoying the process itself
yeah.
and you're enjoying going there.
Mm,
Even though there are some fantastic speakers that take place in many clubs constantly, they're still going there.
mm.
There's a reason for that, I assume.
You tell me about something that made you, for example, choose to be in this club, that maybe enjoyment or something else that motivated you or thought, okay, this is where I want to spend at least 1, 2 years.
What did I see different, for example, that really attracted me? First, the participation was clearly very high in Prostmasters because the day I've seen the least people with team have been like 10, which
Mm,
means there is big involvement, and every time I go, I meet some new people because there's such already a base there that you can still even meet new people even though you go quite often. But secondly, at least I've learned this during the last months. I see there is a base of members that is quite active in the club. Some can come and gone, but there is quite a sustained membership there.
mm,
And as I came new and I have joined, found everybody to be very nice. Absolute honesty. Of course, most there, some of them have been there for more than 10 years, but still the environment that is built there is not an environment that you have to find your way in. If it could be described, I was welcomed for from the first day as guest,
mm,
and I think you don't see that everywhere.
mm,
I think in some other locations, I don't know if it has to do with a cultural aspect or if some clubs were developed in with some more restrictions in some ways.
mm.
Not all clubs are as welcoming, even as a guest. Therefore, for me, in comparing and deciding whether I want to choose this club, that was a main aspect. And you see the quality in sincerely in the speeches and the feedback. You do see very good points. I think I commented on my first day as a guest that I saw a very well formulated but very critical feedback of one of the members. And here openly speaking with all words like, that's good. There's no bullshit or going around in the feedback. Because I think that's one of the most important parts that we are not sugarcoating
Yeah.
the valuations. They have to
Mm.
be what they are. Of course, they are subjective, but they should not be sugarcoated. And I think that's important. In other clubs that I went, there is sometimes the confusion of being polite with of politeness with not sharpness, but with specificity and being clear on what you want to communicate.
Mm.
And here I think they merged really well.
Mm.
So I'm gonna learn. And that was my thought in that specific moment. Therefore, from my side, absolutely, it really called me from the beginning, from that first meeting, and then as soon as I joined, I joined.
So if I say or summarize the points, how often people participate, the amount of participation and energy.
Mm,
You talked before about diversity, but now you talked about inclusion, and this is something for me very interesting because these values, especially, I'm working also in sustainability area, and I see how much important it is for companies in the future to live these values. I see it already in Prostmasters or in Toastmasters in general. And yeah, you talked about the quality, that quality of feedback.
yes.
Everyone can do it his own way. Like it's a tool. Public speaking is a tool, and
Mhm.
Toastmasters give you the freedom now after this how you want to go. And in our club, we mentioned before, there are many who are doing their own events, but they started from the club
Mm,
and they changed, some of them changed in their profession, like they were more back office, let's say. And then after they got the skills of public speaking and communicating, they went to different areas in their career while still having the same kind of specialization.
mm.
And here I would like to come back to your profession. How does public speaking or being in Toastmasters, let's say, helps you in your career?
I will talk here about my previous work experience. I give you an easy example. I was working at an energy-related multinational here in Germany, and once I had a presentation for the COO of the company. Company that has like 70 or 80,000 people, employees worldwide. That doesn't come automatically.
Mm,
And after that, I used my learnings from my first period of Toastmasters, the one I mentioned in Stuttgart, and I really managed to slowly build something I was comfortable with.
mm,
And understanding that, like we mentioned, there is no specific way of presenting. I saw some of my colleagues use different approaches, but I need to understand that I need to be comfortable with my approach.
mm,
And I managed to go there. We managed to organize first a thing in the building of every speech. You have an idea behind, you have to structure it wisely, and you have to talk it out loud. I think for me, these are sort of the three ways I make a speech. I have an idea in mind, I have to create a structure before, And then I try to talk it out loud to understand whether what I'm saying is reasonable, if a specific point needs to go a bit further or a bit earlier. And I did that a few times in order to structure that presentation that we had. And in the end, you start to realize that it's about thinking the process. If what I'm doing sounds natural to me
mm,
first, and it sounds understandable to the people outside, then you are on the right track.
mm,
And the difference is now when I finished studying, I was terrible at public speaking. Still, I was. But I realized that slowly I focused on, especially in my master's, to develop more presentations, try to present more and more and more. The more I did, the little bit better I was getting. But I had no plan in mind. It was just going instinctively. But when I managed to get into those masters, I started realizing I was having more of a plan. The structure starts to fall into place faster because I've done it already quite a few times.
mm,
Because I start to understand the logic of the ideas that I want to present. And very important, start to understand who is the listener, because it does differ massively.
mm,
Especially in a professional environment, you have to adapt to who is listening.
mm,
And that's why I believe those masters is also interesting because there are some projects, especially I think in the further levels, not in the very introductory ones, but the further levels in which, like this podcast, for example, you're trying a different format. There are more persuasive text, exactly, more persuasive speech possibilities. We are also doing Q&As. We're doing different formats that can really be applicable then to an incredible amount of different formats for the future, whether it is professionally or for your hobby or whatever it is. You can really extract value from there and then
mm.
translate it to what is gonna be your normal activity.
The people who are listening, they always think, was habe ich davon?
Yeah. What is in for me?
What is
What
in
is
for
in for
me?
me? Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. In fact, I I think I heard that for the first time. The concept itself was speech within Toastmasters.
Mm,
The what is in for me to try to simplify the idea and make and keep the listeners engaged, certainly.
mm. And this is one of the things that makes you less nervous speaking in public when you focus on the people and you really have genuine interest to benefit or make people laugh or just think about like connection, reconnection, include everyone when you speak.
Absolutely. I mean, and it's an interesting format because you have to stay in the middle between, I mean, if you searched for two extreme scenarios, you have the traditional university professor to say something a bit
Mm,
extreme, that a person that goes, talks without expecting any feedback, or just talks to in a one way
mm,
street, and just students have to write or whatever. And then you have the other opposite, which is an active discussion in which either two or more people are interacting, and that the flow of ideas is affecting what the next one will say. But here you're giving a speech which has to be attractive enough for the listener to keep engaged,
mm.
but you're not expecting feedback in those
Yeah,
semesters normally.
not directly at least.
Exactly. So it's interesting. You have to keep attention without expecting reply. So the speech has to be attractive enough to keep the attention of the listeners for the whole duration.
One of your friends is considering joining the club,
Mhm.
but they are afraid, like they are afraid to come and speak in front of so many people and they don't know how to start. Maybe it's not easy for them to communicate with others, but they're unsure. They want to do it, but there are lots of these limitations in their head.
Mhm.
What would you tell them?
I think the people that I initially offered to come as guests to a meeting were mostly from my working environment. so from my job. And they were mostly people that were having difficulties to mostly focused on presentations at work. So if I
Mm,
had to do a presentation for a larger audience, they were having struggles to keep the pace, keep it interesting, or they really well feeling anxious. I think in this moment their struggle could have been that even though you go as guest, they see themselves still a bit too far away either of the people that are really good speakers, and when they see them as guests, they are a bit overwhelmed as if I'm never gonna get to that level,
mm,
or the possibility that they're even asked to go on stage, for example, table topics. Some people are really, especially with the improvisation part, they may be a bit concerned that they're just not gonna be good enough for it. Even if they see examples, some people do struggle. So keeping them going was not really possible. What do I think? How would I say it now differently? I think targeting more the point that we discussed in the beginning, that you have to develop your way of presenting.
mm,
And I give you an example of this, not from Toastmasters, but from another public speaking activity I did many years ago. This was like 10 years ago, I believe. I went to a course in Spain that was being taught by a former news presenter. So from the local, the national news, I think it was. He was from the Canary Islands, and he was giving a course. And everything was really very formally taught, as in you should focus on this, this, and this. And now we will do presentations or activities or exercises to focus on this, this, and this point. And it was just following this quite well set structure that he had in
mm,
mind for himself. And I don't disagree that the the course lecturer or the presenter here was very good at public speaking. But in the end, when we all finished that course, I think it was difficult to extrapolate those learnings into real life
mm,
because we were learning his way, not our way.
mm,
And that's what the way I would focus now, that people do actually know how to present in their own way.
mm,
They just need sometimes some push to see that mostly other people have also similar problems. They just may be coming from different angles, but mostly everybody knows how to present. You just have to polish a few aspects in the end. And that you can do, and that goes through practice and learning yourself. So I will focus more on convincing from that specific set, that it's
mm,
not that you're doing it wrong or you can learn from people to do it better. No, it's look how other people are doing it differently and you may learn from this.
mm.
I think that's how I will frame it now.
It's Pablo, because scientifically proven, there is no one in history who's like Pablo, for example.
Mhm.
No one is like you. No one is like me. No one is like anyone who's listening to us. And this comes from the strength because yeah, you can just be yourself. Of course, it takes some practice, but by time you will know why. Many people say, "Oh, I want to do anything." For example, I don't know, write a book, do a podcast, have a speech, be do anything new, creative. And then they say, "You know what? But maybe someone else did it already. Why me?" Yeah, because nobody heard it from you. Nobody listened to you speaking about this topic.
From the way I see it, I think to attract people to Toastmasters and to understand this focus on your own way is essential. Also to understand that from what you're gonna hear, you're not only gonna learn how to do better. No, I go back to the better. You see, that's the wrong way of framing it. That's the wrong way of framing it. It's rather to find your own way, to be secure with your own way, but at the same time, you're gonna learn how other people do it, and you're gonna learn a lot of interesting content, not related to public speaking, because you meet just different people. And that's something I realize every day. I hear super interesting stories. I learn stuff from Toastmasters that then I go research on my own. And that is a not, I don't call it a selling point. It's not about selling, but it's about showing that it makes a connection between yourself. What are you understanding from yourself, and what do you understand from others? Because this I love to go because I call Toastmasters my mental hobby.
Your
The
mental
my mental hobby, my mental hobby,
hobby. Okay.
which when I'm finished with work, sometimes yeah, I do sport and so on. That's my physical hobby, but I need a mental hobby,
Mm,
something that keeps my mind active and not only thinking of work. And that's something great because I have to think about different topics, writing my speeches, thinking how can I do the feedback, thinking how can I do the Toastmasters role, for example, the last meeting. Something I'm looking forward to that is not only related to work, for instance, in our case, because we are now in the time range that we're not studying anymore.
mm.
But I end up looking forward to it because I've understood that this is nothing that there is a specific goal. We also mentioned that before. There is not a midterm goal that in 5 years I should be presenting in a specific setting. I don't know, in the global convention. Yeah, maybe that happens, maybe not. But in the meantime, what I'm gaining is of great value.
I like this term, mental hobby.
Yeah, sure. It is, and it's I think less people, le less people than we think have thought in this of the mental hobby because you end up maybe a bit, depleted after work. But it's good to finish work and you're still the brain is active and the brain is motivated with a little short-term goal of building a speech, for example, or giving a good feedback session, and that activity that happens in your brain makes you be more positive, and you go to the sessions and you interact with people, and in the end, I still say you the mental hobby really supports your development.
Pablo, I really enjoy speaking to you and seeing things how you like this. As I said, this term I really liked it, mental hobby, and also seeing many other things that you talked about that made me aware also more of what we do, and maybe sometimes there are things that you like doing,
Mhm.
but you don't really know why I like it. Like I love Toastmasters, and I know main reasons why I love it because it improved me in certain ways, but there are other areas now you are making me more aware of them. It's not only diversity, but also inclusion, for example, and
Yeah.
so many other topics that are interesting we talked about. So thank you for this, Pablo. What is the thing that you enjoyed the most in Stuttgart in Toastmasters that made you come and continue the experience in Munich?
Hmm. Um, Something I found very interesting there was that when I arrived as a guest, knowing nothing about Toastmasters, I honestly knew nothing apart from the idea of improving public speaking, as we already mentioned. The members were very nice, certainly. When I had the chance to be there on site, they were very nice. There was this big diversity within the cohort, not cohort, sorry, but the group, let's say. And I learned a lot, and I realized that there was a very interwoven community, so that people had been participating for a long time. They were all quite fond of each other, and even when we were having other online meetings, participation was also high. I mentioned that this is also something I like from Prostmasters. Um, the online situation, of course, killed it a bit, but something that I find important. I moved them back to Spain, and I moved a bit around for a few years before coming to Munich and settled in Munich.
Mm,
It's actually a bit of that community feeling is also a big part of those masters. It's not only, we've mentioned it already regarding learning your own way of speaking, but you're meeting people and you have to be comfortable with people.
mm,
And that cannot happen when you're moving a lot around. It's inevitable. It's inevitable. But something that I sincerely found interesting in Stuttgart was this community feeling, this community setup that they had built there. And that when I finally managed to settle in down in a place like I've done now, and I went to a few clubs, I found that this community feeling in the Prostmasters is quite the case as well. Is similar. People are taking care of each other, they are interested in each other. We have the dinners every once in a while. There's also some other connected activities. There is not only the meetings.
mm,
That makes it more personal.
mm.
And that's after I think I went I mentioned it before. I think in total Content Pros Masters, I think I went to 4 clubs to visit, to see them and to get the impression. And here is where I felt the most comfortable.
They're all Munich, right?
They're all in Munich. Yeah, I went 3, 4 in the whole Munich. I felt the most comfortable here. For me, a long-term goal is that at some point, very likely the next year, I will join a club in German to to
Oh, okay.
to practice properly in German. I think that's something I need to go further with the speeches.
Mm,
But in terms of the community here, uh, I went one time and I felt it great. And then when I said, okay, I'm ready to join now I have enough time to dedicate to Toastmasters. I decided I contacted Ranjit and sent him 2 WhatsApp messages and said, yeah, I saw the communication through WhatsApp was as friendly and as motivating as it was when I was there. But let's do it.
the more people come, the more experiences you have, the more people you don't know about that you come and share new stories. And this is part of the growth because really 1 + 1 there is equal 11. It's not, and I live this there. So thank you again, Pablo, for your time, for sharing your experiences.
Absolutely, it was very interesting to see it like this. So thank you for inviting me. That's what I can say. It was a new experience, and hopefully at some point, yeah, I can try myself being the one doing the interview, the one with the huge microphone.
Oh, yeah, of course. And we can do it again also in the future.
Yeah, sure.